Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely...
Okay, this story is insane. This happened to my family when I was in high school. And it sounds like it's not even real, but I promise you it is. It involves demons, exorcism, deliverance, whatever you want to call it. So in high school, we had a housekeeper. For her privacy, we'll call her Joanna. So one day, Joanna comes up to my mom and she's really distraught. And she's like, I don't know what to do. Please, can you help me? And my mom's like, what's going on? And she knew that we were Christian and spiritual. And I guess she thought that maybe my mom would know something that'd be able to help her. So she was like, we've been having a lot of paranormal, ghost, demonic activity in our house. And my mom was like, what do you mean? What's going on? So she tells my mom that everything started going crazy when one of her neighbors or somebody that she knew gifted her youngest daughter a bicycle, like a tiny little tricycle that she could ride inside the apartment. And she had two daughters. So the youngest one got this tricycle and received this gift. They were really happy. And then weird things started happening. Like, she said that in the middle of the night, they would hear like the bell of the tricycle ringing, and they would like hear it like going around the house by itself when the kids were not on it. The kids were asleep in their bed. And then she would start to get up like late at night and go look and see what the noises were. And the daughters would too. And they literally said that they would see the tricycle like going around the apartment at night, riding around with nobody riding it. Things started to get weirder. The youngest daughter, who was gifted the tricycle thing, she started seeing like a little boy, like a tiny little toddler boy, like a demon, running around their house at night and playing with the tricycle and playing with her toys. And it started to talk to her and befriend her. And it would tell her to go and hide weapon, like knives from the kitchen underneath her bed. It would tell her to harm herself, to harm her sister, and different things like that. So at this point, this is when Joanna comes to my mom and she does not know what else to do. She's like, this is a spiritual problem. I don't know if I have ghosts in my house, if I have demons in my house. I don't know what is going on. And luckily she went to my mom, because all the women in my family, me, my mom, my grandma, great grandma, we're ministers and we know how to clean houses, cast out demons, all of that stuff. And instead of going to like a psychic or a witch or something like that to go and help her. So my mom and my grandma meet with her and they just start talking to her and explaining to her that these are demons in your house. They're not ghosts, because when we die, we go to heaven or hell, and our souls are not trapped here on earth in some in-between realm and unfinished business. That's all baloney. So they're like, you have demons in your house. And the good thing is that these can leave when you call on the name of Jesus. So we're going to come to your house. We're going to cleanse your house, pray over your house, cast the demons out. People call it different things, but they're like, that's what we're going to do. And she was like, great, come over. So my mom, my grandma, and their friend, I'm like, this is before I'm in ministry. I'm in high school. Now I'm a minister and I do this stuff all the time, but this was like 10 years ago. So my mom, my grandma, and their friend, they go to their house, they explain the gospel, believe in Jesus, get saved, and be filled with the Holy Spirit. And then like, okay, now that you have the power of God inside of you, the power of God in your home, let's kick these demons out, because sage and crystals and waving around like plants and those things do not get rid of demons. Those things invite demons. And so we were like, the only one who has the power to cast out these spirits and send them back to where they came from so they stop tormenting you is Jesus Christ. So they're like, okay, like let's go. So they start praying. They anoint the home with oil, commanding every demon, so basically what happened, if you guys are like, how did this even happen? A tricycle. So whoever gave that tricycle, that item was cursed, that object was cursed, or that person was like a witch or a warlock, and they attached a curse and demonic spirits onto that gift and gave it to them. So whatever gifts that you are receiving, be very careful. Don't like take gifts from strangers, or especially don't take any gifts or presents or whatever from people who are involved in witchcraft, the occult, tarot cards, astrology. I used to do some of those things, and it's all really, really evil and demonic. And my story's on my page if you want to go look at that. So yeah, anyways, to end the story, it's so crazy. So after they pray and they command all the demons to get out of their house, threw away the tricycle and everything like that, prayed over the daughter, commanded all demons to leave, then the little girl is like staring out the back patio, and she was just like kept looking out the window, and my mom was like, what do you see? And she was like, the little boy and like the spirit. She was like, they're outside the door, like trying to come in. And my mom was like, are they able to come in? Are they coming in? And she was like, no, like they can't cross the door, like they're not allowed back in anymore. I don't know why. And they were like, because Jesus lives in your house now, the Holy Spirit is protecting you, and there is a barrier that they cannot cross because you're covered in the blood of Jesus, and he's your Lord and Savior now. And that Part of the story always gives me chills. It's so beautiful. God protects us. So there are definitely things that you can do to protect your house and clean out your house. I get so sad when I see people saying, oh, we had to move out, we had to sell the house, we were tormented for years and years. It's like, call on the name of Jesus, anoint your house with oil, get saved, and command those things out of your house. They're the ones who are trespassing, not you. Anyways, if you thought this was interesting, if you want to hear more spiritual tips, spiritual stories, go ahead and hit that follow button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Be blessed. And I hope you know today that Jesus loves you. He died on the cross for you to have a new life. Be blessed.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely...
That sounds crazy, so buckle up. I celebrated a birthday a couple weeks ago, and it's the first birthday that my dad has not been here for, and that was really hard, but it is what it is. And my mom got me a little Build-A-Bear with his voice in it. Like, the little clicky thing was his voice. And it was so sweet and adorable, and so we're all sitting at the kitchen table having a lovely time listening to his voice, and all of a sudden one of his toy fire trucks goes off in the other room. Never once have I heard this thing go off in my life. The siren goes off, the lights go off. Like, I didn't know they had batteries in them. My dad never turned them on like that. So it was so creepy. And like, we weren't talking at the table, like we were just sitting there like listening to his voice, and then all of a sudden his thing lights up from the other room. And we recorded it all. So check it out and let me know what you think. Do you want a big piece? How big do you want?
Hey kiddo, hope you're doing well. I'm feeling much better now, so whenever you can, just come visit me, okay? Okay.
Shut up.
No way.
What?
That has not worked. That has not worked.
It's entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so in my house growing up, my childhood bedroom was attached to the attic. It was in my closet, and there was like this little wooden door on the other side behind my clothes, and when you opened it, you couldn't actually see into the attic. You could only see up the stairs that would take you to the attic. So I never messed with it. I just left it alone. I was like, I don't want to, this is too much. So I would barricade it. I would just leave the escape ladder for a fire in front of it, so I knew that if it was opened, I would hear it. And for a very long time, I always felt like there was a presence in my room. I didn't really know what was going on. It never felt like I was truly alone, and I was an only child of only children, so like, your girl was alone all the time. And I eventually moved my room around to the point where I had this little desk that was like a triangle style desk, so it went straight into the corner. And one night, I woke up in the middle of the night to my bunny rabbit banging against his crate, which he would do almost every night at almost the same exact time, 3:34 a.m. And one night I look over under this desk, and there's this little boy under there. And I can tell he's not real, but like, I don't really know why I can tell he's not real. It's just, maybe he was just like fainter. I just could tell he wasn't a real person. And I wasn't scared. He wasn't scary. He was just in this little like ball, kind of sitting under my desk, and he just looked sad. He just looked sad. And I mean, I didn't love that he was there, but I really didn't mind it too much, maybe because I was half asleep. So I went back to bed, woke up, he was gone, obviously, and I just kind of went by. I went through my day, whatever. And every so often, I would end up waking up to my bunny at the same exact time, and he would just be under this desk in my bedroom. And my parents didn't believe in ghosts, and I didn't really tell anyone about it because I was just like, this is weird. What if I'm dreaming? I don't know what's really going on. That wasn't a conversation that my family and I had about ghosts, whatever. And I just kind of let it be. But as I got older, he never really went away. And I would always just get really creeped out in my house as I got older, and my family never understood why. Like, I didn't really like for it to be dark. I had a nightlight for years, like well into my teenage years, and it was just always because I knew there were other presence in the house. And he was, I'm going to tell you how he was dressed because it's going to play a role in a second. He looked like a little chimney sweep from Mary Poppins. He had the whole attire, the hat. He had what looked like soot on him, and I just thought it was because he lived in the attic upstairs, and that's how I justified it. And I just kind of was like, whatever, didn't really talk to him, didn't really converse with him, let it be. I moved out of the house once I went to college and became an adult, bought my house, moved out, and my dad lived in the house last by himself. He was working on selling the house and told me one night that he had a dream. And it was really weird because he was almost being shown the house by someone who he had never seen there, who he didn't know, who was a little kid, and he didn't really understand the importance of this kid, but this kid just wanted to show him around the house. And he was like, it was really daunting because I woke up and he was just kind of looking at me from the end of my bed. And I walked around with him. He didn't say anything. And then we just kind of went on our way, and that was it. And I was like, okay, so tell me more about this little boy. Because mind you, I had never told my family this little boy, what he looked like, anything like that. I just said that I felt like there was something in the house all the time. That's all I said. And he proceeds to tell me that it looks like he has like suspenders on, and like he's from like early 20s, not early 20s, early 1900s, mid 1900s, and that he was like kind of dirty. And I was like, oh, that's super interesting. Is there any chance he was wearing like a little hat like a chimney sweep would? And he goes, yeah, it kind of did look like one of those hats. And I was like, interesting, okay. And was he like almost covered in soot, like maybe he was a chimney sweep? And he goes, yeah, he was pretty dirty. And I was like, that's really interesting. And this was a boy, right? Like he was probably like 8, 9. And he was like, yeah, that's exactly about how old I would have pegged him for. And I was like, yeah, that boy has been living in my bedroom for almost my entire life. And you got to meet him, I guess, because you're the only one there. And he was like, no. And I was like, yeah, he showed up in your dreams. Probably around 3 a.m. is when he came and popped by, because I know that you go to work at 4:30 a.m. He goes, yeah, I was awake for probably like an hour before my alarm went off for me to like go to work. And I was like, that's interesting. That is interesting. So I convinced my dad that ghosts are real and that I had been seeing his ghost for 15 plus years, and he got to meet him.
Unbelievable, but is entirely true.
Okay, I have video footage of this. I will share it at the end. Nobody thinks it's real. Like, it seems like it's doctored footage, but it's not. I swear on my life. Basically, both my sister and my old roommate used to work at this like music school daycare center for kids in the Upper East Side. The music classes would happen upstairs, but downstairs in the basement there was this like daycare situation, and you had to work down there. and they both hated being down there. And I'd been down there a few times too. It is really scary. Like, you know when you just get a feeling about a place? Like, that is the basement. It was horrible. They would both, like, hear voices when their co-teacher hadn't showed up yet, or, like, the cleaner would go downstairs and all the toys would be arranged in, like, a circle, and she'd be, like, in tears, being like, are you guys playing a prank on me? I seriously, like, I don't feel safe here. The kids would all say really creepy shit. Like, they'd say, like, there's a really, like, mean guy in, like, the tunnel, like, a little play tunnel thing, or, like, there's, like, someone mean over in, like, the dark corner of the basement. So when COVID hit, obviously no one was going into the daycare. It essentially shut down. But the owners installed cameras just in case, like, anything happened while they weren't there. And it picked up the most insane shit ever. It's 1.5 minutes long, so here you go.
So I never tell the story because no one ever believes me, and also I kind of question my own sanity. I'll be like, did that really happen? But I know that that happened. I saw a girl's story time on here and it just validated my whole experience because she said this happens a lot in Illinois. So I'm from Chicago, the east side, and around the time that this happened, I was like 16. I remember just getting my license and I was so excited because I finally got a taste of freedom. I could do whatever I want. I can go wherever I want. And I was so excited, but my mom gave me an 11:30 curfew. So I was like the type of person who would like wait until the very last minute to leave wherever I was at to try to get home on time at 11:30. So I remember I was just leaving my friend's house and I was almost home, y'all. Like I was like right around the corner from my house. So if you guys are familiar with Chicago, you might know where CVS High School is. So I was like on 87th, I was right by CVS, and then I remember turning left, right? And I turned left and I was driving straight, and it was like I said, it was like around 11:30, so it was dark outside, and I looked and I saw a humongous animal. Like it was I don't know if it was a panther or a tiger. It definitely wasn't a tiger. It was like a big huge animal. And when I say like I almost shit my pants, like I was like I froze in the car, and I was at a stop sign when I looked over and I saw it, and he was just walking, and when I stopped, it looked at me, and like we locked eyes, and then I just kept driving. I was like, oh my God, like I had to get home because I need to make my curfew or I was gonna get beat up and I was gonna get in trouble. So I was like, let me just try to get home and forget about that, right? And I was like, I'm gonna like tell my mom when I get home, right? So I got home, my mom was livid because I missed curfew, and I didn't even end up telling her. I remember telling my friends the next day and nobody believed me. So I remember like looking up, did an animal escape from the zoo? I found nothing on that. And like I said, like I lived in the city, so it wasn't normal for us to see like huge ginormous panthers or whatever the case may be, whatever animal that was. It wasn't normal to see stuff like that at all. And I don't know, like to this day I always think like, what was that? Like it was so strange. Like it was such a strange looking animal, like something an animal I've never seen before, an animal I don't even know if it exists. So yeah, y'all, like very, very weird experience.
Now remember how I've always said to be careful what you say out loud, because you may essentially be inviting things into your space that you may not want there. This story I'm about to share is one of the biggest reasons as to why I don't say the V word out loud. I don't say the SW word out loud. I don't say a lot of these words out loud. But let's just get to it. For the sake of the story, we're going to call her Kelly. One night, Kelly was home alone just scrolling through TikTok when she ran across a creator talking about the legend of the SW. Kelly started to get the feeling that the creator was about to use their proper Navajo name. So she decided that she was going to get out of the video before the creator said it out loud. Mind you, using their Navajo proper name is a huge no-no. Before Kelly could get out of the video, the creator said the name out loud and it was just out there. Right after this name was said out loud, Kelly started to hear what sounded like footsteps on her roof. At first, she thought that there was absolutely no way that this being heard its name being called and jumped on her 3rd-story roof. But just to be safe, she decided to go around and check all her windows, lock them, and make sure her curtains were shut. That night, she could not sleep. She kept tossing and turning. She kept feeling like there was this impending doom upon her. Fast forward a couple days, Kelly was at a home where she takes care of these 4 elderly ladies. While Kelly's at the house, in the middle of the night, she hears what sounds like this wailing coming from outside the window. Her first thought was that it was probably one of the ladies, so she went to check up on them, and one by one, all of the ladies were asleep. Kelly decides to ignore it and go about the rest of her night. Now, fast forward a couple weeks, Kelly is at the same home taking care of the 4 older ladies, but 2 of them are out of town. So it's just the lady that lives upstairs and the lady that lives downstairs. Kelly's in the kitchen cooking dinner when she hears somebody call her name. Now, mind you, the person that called her name sounded like one of the ladies that were out of town. So Kelly responds with, "I'm in the middle of cooking. Just give me a minute so I can step away." The voice then responds, almost like growling this time and more agitated, and says, "Can you just come over here? I need help." Now this time it sounded like the lady that was upstairs. So Kelly goes upstairs to her room, knocks on the door and says, "Hey honey, did you need me? I heard you calling me saying that you needed my help." The lady looks at her like she's crazy and says, "No, I have not called you." Kelly just responds with, "Oh, I must have misheard," and just walks away. Kelly decides to check the rest of the house and it was completely silent, but there was this eerie feeling about the whole house. Once Kelly's getting ready to go home at about 10 p.m., she's walking to her car and hears what sounds like a turkey. Now, mind you, in the area she lives at, there are no turkeys. Kelly assumes that it's probably one of the neighborhood kids messing around, so Kelly decides to respond by making that same sound. The minute Kelly does this, she hears what sounds like running coming from behind her. Whatever this was running straight for her car. Now, I'm gonna have to do a part 2 because TikTok has not given me 10-minute videos yet.
Story time on the time that I saw my neighbor who had already passed away going to go get water while I was on my way back from getting water to go to the house. And when I got to the house, I found out that she had passed away that morning and I didn't even know that. So this story's kind of crazy. I'm laughing because I couldn't sleep for a good month and a half after all this happened, right? So I told this story during Halloween a couple years ago on YouTube and the feedback was crazy. So I figured I'll just bring it back since TikTok people don't know about it. So going back to Haiti, I was very, very young. We had this neighbor that used to sell those things that you will light up at night if you have mosquitoes. They shape like a snake. I don't know what they're called. Maybe if you know, let me know in the comment below. But she used to sell those things and one day she just fell sick. Very, very sick. We just never saw her. We will go to her. So every time we order, this person will come to the door and give us what we need. But Sister Mary, which is the lady who always give us the things that we need, just hadn't been showing up. But as a child, I'm like, okay, well, it's her house. Maybe she's either in the house, don't want to come out, or she went to the next town over to go visit her family. In Haiti, that's a normal thing. You can just go visit your family for like 6 months and then come back, right? So eventually my aunt came and told us that Sister Mary, that was her name, is not feeling well. She's at home, but she's just not feeling well. As children, we just let it go. Okay, well, Sister Mary's sick, whatever. Well, one day, I was sent to get water. It was my turn to go get water. So the way to go get water is basically, it's like 15 minutes away, but you do carry the water, and we take turn in the house as children. They sent different people different days, right? So this one particular day, it was early in the morning, they sent me to go get water. I'd say maybe, well, not really early. It was summertime. I'd say around like 10, 11. They sent me to go get water. I went to go collect water. And as I was coming back from collecting water, I'm walking down. It's a 15-minute walk. I'm carrying the thing on top of my head. I'm walking down, and I saw someone who looks like Sister Mary. And my aunt was saying how frail she was. She's losing a lot of weight, blah, blah, blah. But when I saw this person, she looked just like I remember Sister Mary to be, like how she was before, you know, thick. You know, she wasn't like fat, but she was thick. You know, she looked fine. She looked normal. She didn't look sick. So I saw her. I said hello to her. We're talking. And, you know, I told her, we haven't seen you. We heard that you were sick. Yeah, so we heard that you were sick. How are things doing? You look like you're doing much better now. And she answered me like normal, like someone she knows, right? So I just went on about my business. I told her, have a good day. She told me she was going to go collect water, and she had the bucket in her hand and everything. So I told her, have a good day, and I continue on my merry way. So I ended up going home that day, and I told my sister, I'm like, yo, you will never guess who I just saw at the water thing, right? So I told her a whole story about this lady that I just saw, and we know her because she's our neighbor. So I'm like, yeah, I saw her. You know, she looked good. I don't know what Aunt was talking about because she doesn't look sick. Her eyes literally opened up as if she just saw a ghost. I'm like, what's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? She says, oh, nothing. So I'm like, okay. I just went about my day and continued doing whatever I was doing until a few minutes later, I hear people screaming and yelling. Well, the news had been spreading in the whole town that Sister Mary has passed away. I'm looking at my sister and I'm thinking, what the fuck? What do you mean Sister Mary passed away? I just saw Sister Mary. What do you mean? And she looked fine. Well, everybody's yelling. Nobody's telling me what's going on. Then my sister told me, oh yeah, Sister Mary died this morning. I'm like, there's no way. How could Sister Mary die this morning? I just told you I saw her this morning. She's like, well, that's the crazy thing because you're telling me you just saw her and Sister Mary died before you went to go collect water. From there on, I kid you not, I could not speak. I could not move. Everything was crazy.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I've been waiting about 20 years to get this off my chest. I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, in the Army back in the early 2000s, 2002 to 05. We deployed in 03. My unit got back in 2004-ish, and our company was assigned to a bunch of details. Like other vets will tell you what's up with that. But there was like funeral detail, gate guard, like all this other stuff. And since I only had a couple months left on my contract, my platoon sergeant sent me over to the gym, Long Gym. It was a fairly modern building, not old. Some of the buildings on Fort Riley are pretty antiquated. It's an old post, right? And so yeah, no big deal. So I go over there, and one of the things that I noticed right away is when I was up on the second floor by myself, I always felt like I was being watched. It was this really weird, eerie feeling. The gym is 2 floors. It has a big glass front, from what I remember. You go up the stairs immediately, you're on the second floor. It's got a bunch of gym equipment, like not free weights, but like the machines. And to your left was a balcony that looked out over a basketball court on the first floor. So just for layout. And you go right in, there's a hallway, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, yeah, I was got this creepy feeling about being up there by myself. So months go by, like it's now late fall. And if you know anything about Kansas or the Midwest at all, is that in places like that, the wind never stops blowing. And in this particular night, it was cold and it was rainy. And earlier in the day, we were told that the brigade was having a mandatory fun day. That sounds as lame as it's as lame as it sounds. Where you're voluntold to hang out with them and have big fun. So the whole brigade was supposed to like play soccer and volleyball outside. Well, because the weather was so shitty that they would be bringing in the gym. So we had to clean. And if there's one thing in the military, we'll teach us how to clean something. Anyway, so that night it's just blustery and cold and gross, and nobody's coming into the gym because nobody's leaving the barracks. Nobody's coming here. Everybody's warm. Everybody is where it's warm. And so we cleaned our butts off. Like, we scrubbed the place down from stem to stern, or so I thought. But anyway, me and this guy named Doherty, he's like, I'm 6'3". This guy's like 6'4", and corn-fed, big boy, right? So we go up to the second floor to walk through, and he gets out ahead of me. And so, just being kind of silly, but also kind of testing a theory, I shut the lights off on him as he got like halfway through the second floor. I've never seen a dude that big move that fast and that gracefully, by the way, back to me toward the light. And he was like, dude, don't turn this light off. I said, why not, James? And he was like, because I always feel like I'm being watched up here. And I was like, okay. So the night goes on, and it's about 20 minutes to close. It's almost 20 minutes to 9 or 8, something like that. And it's nasty, dark. Nobody's coming in. So I go ahead and send my crew home. We all have to be there at 7 a.m. for this mandatory fun day. So I sent them off and locked the door behind them. Well, I'm walking through the gym one last time, making sure everything's the way it's supposed to be. And I'll kiss your bare ass if we didn't miss the biggest room in the house, the basketball court. There's dust all over this floor. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. We had managed to pull the bleachers out, but we missed the biggest floor. Anyway, no big deal. I have nowhere to go. It's a Thursday night. I remember it's a Thursday night. Ain't shit going on. So I grab my broom and I'm sweeping. And I'm, as Joss Whedon referred to in Buffy, is having happy non-thoughts. You know what I mean. You're not thinking of anything. Nothing positive, nothing negative. You are not having thoughts. And I'm just sweeping along. Well, at one point, it felt like somebody was standing directly behind me. Like, directly. Like, right at my back. And I thought that James had somehow gotten back in. And that fucker was messing with me. And with broom in my hand, I spun around. And nobody was there. Okay, not fun, but whatever. And I'm off doing my thing again. And, all of a sudden, I had these really, really bad thoughts. Like, really intrusive, really bad thoughts. Like, if something were to happen to you, nobody would care. If you were to disappear, nobody ever come looking for you. Nobody loves you, blah, blah, blah. Like, these awful string of really, really bad thoughts. And being a preacher's kid, now I'm nervous. It's not cool, like, what I'm feeling. Like, that's not me, right? And so when I get nervous, I begin to sing Amazing Grace to myself, because I'm by myself, and it's now a little spooky. And the amount of malevolence and the amount of anger and just rage, unlike anything I'd ever experienced before in my life, was suddenly directed at me. I was singing the wrong song. It would be like Biden showing up to a Trump rally. Bad. It was bad. It was real bad. And I closed my eyes because it hit me like a wave, and I closed my eyes for just a second. And in my third eye, in my mind's eye, the bleachers were full of people. And the balcony was full of people. And that glass wall up on that second floor looking over was full of people. And they were not happy with me at all. And I began to quote the 23rd Psalm. Though I walked in the valley of the shadow of death, I should fear no evil, for thou art with me. And my mind switched over to when Jesus asked the madman Gadara, who are you? And the demons answered back, Legion, for we are many. And I said, okay, you got the gym for the night. And I forcibly walked to the door back into the hallway. Because I knew if I would have started running, something was going to get me at that door. It wanted me afraid. I think it wanted me to hurt myself. And I was alone and vulnerable. I put my stuff away. I grabbed my car keys and I drove back to the barracks. I got in my barracks room. I got under the covers and I called my dad. Nothing like that has ever happened to me since then. Nothing like that ever happened before. But I really, honest to God, believe something. I honest to God believe I met a demon or demons. I think those words are the same. I think they're the same thing. That's the feeling they gave me anyway. But yeah, that's my ghost story. And I don't want to have another one. So thanks.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, so I'm back with another one. So same house, it's my parents' house. We actually had just moved in. We hadn't been living there maybe for a month, if that. It was the winter time when we moved in. I was very young when we moved in this house, so I just remember it was winter time because we had the heat on and we had radiators. And the radiators were just so loud and obnoxious and they were turned all the way up, so it was like ungodly hot in my room, right? So I went to sleep this night. Here comes my son to interrupt the story. So I went to sleep this night and it was so hot and the radiators were just loud and banging. And I remember I woke up in the middle of the night and I had just looked at my arm because I sleep like this. And my arm, no lie, from here to here was slit open and bleeding. At least that's what I seen. So I start panicking. I jump up and I look and my arm, there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm just sitting there like, what the hell just happened? I kept looking, I kept touching it, and there was nothing there. I know what I saw. I know what I felt. Like, I could feel it. It was warm. It felt like it was bleeding. It was a very surreal and crazy experience.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely...
I actually have the craziest ghost story that directly affected me during college. So I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I went to a small Catholic college about an hour outside of the city in like a rural area in the Allegheny Mountains, which are a subsection of the Appalachian Mountains. So this is my college. It's St. Vincent College in Latrobe, PA. And as you can see, we have a basilica, like a church, on campus. We also have a monastery with monks and priests. Some of them are even our professors. And it's a beautiful campus. I had a great 4 years, but I am convinced that this place is haunted, and it's honestly like an open secret. Even the religious congregation and stuff, they don't deny it. So the faculty and staff and even like alumni and students have ghost stories and urban legends that they tell about the school, and they're just like kind of like a fun part of the campus culture. But there is actually like a lot of spiritual energy on this campus, mainly because there's a large religious influence, but also our dorms are right against a decently sized cemetery. My sophomore dorm was actually right up against it. And so what happened to me lasted a little bit over a year. It actually went from my freshman year into my sophomore year. So now you have the background on my college campus. But what happened to me was just a bunch of consecutive events. It wasn't like one big thing. And there was, of course, like a peak where things got pretty intense. So my freshman dorm had these things called pods, where just big living spaces for the same gender. So you had about 10 rooms on the outside of the pod, and then you had a living area and bathrooms and showers in the center. So there were anywhere from like 15 to 20 girls living in one pod. In our pod in particular, I experienced a lot of weird things from the start. Showers turning on whenever you walk into the bathroom. There was always knocking late at night within the walls. And this isn't coming from another room. Like, they were cinder block walls. You cannot knock to the other rooms, and it would also jump from wall to wall. Our rooms had really heavy wooden doors, and I remember this because whenever you would close them, like, it would kind of click, so you knew the door was completely shut. And all the time my door would just like open up. Also my closet, we had like closets that opened like this, like you pull them open. I would be sitting in bed doing my homework or schoolwork, and the closet doors would just like crack open or like slowly open while I'm sitting there, and I'm watching it like with my own two eyes. So one night I decided to have my guy friends over, and I had like one guy friend in particular, but these were like his friends. So they came to see my room and everything, and they were sitting up against my bed or like my desk, and I had a picture framed above my desk, and it had like the glass cover on the front. And so we're just sitting there talking, and this is like mounted to the wall, like it's not coming off. This picture, like, I very much loved this picture and did not want it to fall off the wall. So we're sitting there, and there is a guy directly under the picture. It just like all of a sudden comes off the wall and breaks, and it wasn't even hanging there. It like was like boom, like off the wall. Everybody stopped what they were doing and were like, what the hell? But we were like, whatever, that can be explained. Then one night, me and my roommate are walking through the graveyard just to go on a walk, because that is our scenery. And I'm saying bye to my roommate. I'm like, I'm gonna go over to my guy friend's dorm so we can study for this chemistry test. So we're just sitting in his room studying. I'm kind of close to the door, and we hear like a single knock on the door, and we're like, oh, let's not answer it. What if it's a RA? Like, we don't want to get in trouble. There's alcohol in the room. So we ignore it. 15 minutes later or so, there's 2 louder knocks on the door, and we're like, okay, is someone playing a prank on us? So we wait a little bit, and then we open the door, no one's there. We're like, okay, someone's messing with us. Some more time passes, okay? And all of a sudden there's 3 loud knocks on the door, and I'm right by the door. I swing it open, and no one is there. Like, no one would have time to run away from the door. We would have heard them. We would have seen them. We're so creeped out. We get out of the room, and we go to like the other rooms in his pod, and we like are like, hey, like, are you pranking us? These guys are like in bed. No one's up or hanging out in the living area. Everyone is like, no one's messing with you. What are you even talking about? We didn't hear any knocks.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, I have to share one of the craziest experiences that I've ever had in my life. I have so many ghost stories, but this one is one of the craziest. So this happened when I was in middle school. I was probably about 13 or 14, and it happened with my two best friends at the time. Let's call them C and K. So this night in particular, we were all staying at C's house, and it was the middle of December, and her family, her mom and dad and her little brother, were off at a wedding an hour away from where we were. So, just like typical teenage girls, we loved watching horror movies together, so we decided this night we would watch The Ring for the first time together. When we watched movies at C's house, we would always watch them downstairs in the basement. That was just the hangout spot whenever we were over there. In this basement, when you would walk directly down the stairs, you would enter into the living room where we would watch movies. On the back wall, there was one couch. On the opposite wall of the staircase, there was another couch. In front was the TV, and directly to the left of the staircase was a storage room door. When we started watching the movie, I was sitting in an office chair directly in front of the storage room door. C was sitting on the couch directly on the back wall, and Kay was sitting on the couch across from the staircase. We get probably a quarter to a halfway through the movie when the storage room door behind me that was closed slowly creaks open, slams shut, and slowly creaks open again. All three of us screamed, and we all ran over to the couch where Kay was sitting. For some reason, it didn't cross any of our minds to even go and check into the storage room to see if anything was in there. So we all just curled up on that couch together and put a blanket over us and called it good. We continued watching the movie, and at one point, I distinctly remember all three of us sitting in a row, texting on our flip phones to who knows who. At that moment, while all three of us were mid-text, all of the power in the entire house, including all three of our cell phones, goes out and turns off. As we are sitting there bewildered and confused to what is going on, all of the power and our phones turn back on, and C's mom runs down the stairs asking if we're okay. We thought nothing of this and just told her, yeah, we're okay, we don't know what happened, and she went back upstairs. Don't ask me why, but for some reason we decided to finish the movie, and at this point it's probably 11 p.m., so it's time to take Kay home. At this age, we just walked everywhere we would go, so we were just going to walk Kay home this night, since she only lived about 10 blocks away from C's, and then I was going to spend the night with C. We all get our coats on and get our shoes on and walk upstairs to go let C's parents know that we're going to be walking Kay home. When we get upstairs, there is nobody in the house. It is dead silent. All three of us are so confused because her mom just ran down the stairs a few minutes ago asking us if we were okay. When we get outside, we see that it is a snowstorm outside and there's a fresh layer of snow on the ground. C's parents' truck was not home and there was no footprints in the snow whatsoever. They did not come home from the wedding yet. As weird as this was to us, we didn't think twice about it and continued walking Kay home. On our way to Kay's house, we were walking down the main street and there was a runner coming towards us. So all three of us split the way, let the runner go by, turned around. There was nobody there. After we got Kay safely to our house, C and I booked it home. We booked it as fast as we could, ran inside, locked those doors, and tried our best to get a good night's sleep. Since that day, nobody can pay me enough to watch The Ring again or mess with anything to do with The Ring. After this experience, there is no way.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, my turn. So many years ago, my husband and I went on a vacation to Charleston, South Carolina, and we ended up renting an Airbnb on Folly Beach. And it was this adorable little cottage that was built in the early 1900s, and the couple who owned it had remodeled the place recently, and it was just adorable. I loved it from the time we got there. But I did have an eerie feeling the whole time we were there that we weren't alone and that we were being watched. There were hardwood floors throughout the house and all these beautiful rugs in each room, and I kept hearing noises during the night that sounded like someone walking on the rugs, kind of that soft thud sound. I would hear that most of the nights. Well, the first night we were there, I had a dream that a man was standing over me, and he looked like he was from the 1920s or so. He had on a black suit, a white shirt, and then had a bow tie around his neck. But the bow tie looked like a ribbon that was tied. He had this really cool mustache, dark hair that was parted down the middle and slit down on the sides. But he was standing over me, and he had uncovered me, and he was running his finger up the shin of my leg. And so it startled me. I woke up. It just so happened I was in the room alone. My husband had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and I was uncovered and in the exact position that I was in my dream when he was running his finger up my leg. So definitely unnerving, for sure. And I would just have the feeling when I was in the bathroom and getting ready and stuff that I was being watched the whole time. So several nights into our stay there, I gone to sleep, and shortly after, I was in that pre-dream type state where you're not quite fully awake, but you're not really asleep. Well, I heard an electronic sound come into the room. It was like a zipping type sound, zip, and it zips into the room pretty loudly. I open my eyes, and there is a figure that had zipped into the room over to my husband's side of the bed, and it was in the shape of a man with no features, and he was glowing blue, kind of like it would look if you were welding something. It had that appearance to it, but in the shape of a person. And this figure pushed the bed twice. He shook it twice, and I felt the bed move. I was wide awake at this point. And then immediately after that, there was a transformer on a pole outside of our house, and the blinds were open. All of a sudden, there was this huge explosion, and sparks go flying all over the road. The transformer exploded, and there was this huge surge of electrical energy that went throughout the entire house. Like everything was abuzz. All the electronics were going off. You know, I was shaking my husband to wake him up, and it was just, everything occurred back to back to back. It was really freaky. And at that point, I knew that there was definitely a ghost in this house. So needless to say, I barely got any sleep the other nights we were there. And on the final night, my husband had gone to bed early. I stayed up late. I'd been outside taking out the trash, doing dishes, getting ready to leave the next day. About 30 minutes after I shut the lights off and gone to bed, I started hearing all these popping sounds in the house, and they were getting louder and louder. And so, of course, my first instinct is thinking, oh my gosh, it's a ghost. So I'm trying to wake my husband up. I'm shaking him. I'm like, don't you hear it? Don't you hear it? And he finally hears it too. So he gets up, he grabs his gun. We go walking through the house, and the noises are coming from the back door. There was a deck all the way around the house by the back door. So we're walking in that area. I had left the back porch light on that night when I'd gone to bed, but suddenly it was completely black out there, and there was a figure standing in outside the doorway, and it was a guy who had a black hoodie up over his head, and he had a crowbar, and he was trying to pop open the back door. So my husband raised the gun and yelled at him, and all of a sudden there's tons of shuffling going on all over the deck. So there were multiple people out there. I'm not sure how many, but my husband took off after him and chased him. He couldn't catch them, but when he got back, he realized that they had unscrewed the light bulb on the back porch and set it on the table. So our presumption, and the cops' presumption too, was that they knew somebody was in the house, and who knows what their intentions were. They were trying to break in. So anyway, my thoughts about all of this is that the ghost, I think, was there to help us and to warn us that we weren't safe while we were there. And so if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have gotten the sleepless nights, and who knows, I may not have heard them that final night, and we don't know what their intentions were if they would have gotten into the house.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I've got a bunch of these, but I usually don't talk about them often because people think I'm crazy, so I just don't really talk about them. But the earliest memory that I have of weird things happening to me was when I was in first grade. One of my best friends, she was born very ill. I don't know exactly what she had, but she was very, very small. She was in a wheelchair. She couldn't walk on her own. She had an oxygen tank. By the time she was in first grade, I think she'd had 6 or 7 surgeries already. So she was quite ill. But she was one of my best friends. We read together all the time. We both would bring books out to the playground and we would sit and read, or whatever game we were playing, we would play over by the side so that she could, be as involved as she could be. Like, she was great. I loved her. We were really good friends. Unfortunately, we didn't ever really hang out outside of school because she was quite ill. So I didn't really hang out with her. Like, she didn't come over to play or anything like that. But at school, we were always sitting together in school, at lunch, on the playground, all that stuff. And then at some point during the school year, she had another surgery coming up. And it was supposed to be a routine surgery. It was something that she had had before. Again, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a surgery. And her mother had come in and kind of explained a little bit to us what was going to happen. She was going to be out for a few weeks. So the class had, written little, like, get well cards and, like, all these little gifts and trinkets and that kind of thing. And then a couple days later, or a week later, something like that, it was a weekend, and I remember being like, man, I really miss my friend. And I remember waking up in the morning and going downstairs, getting something to eat or whatever kids do in the morning. And when I'd gone back upstairs to my bedroom, my friend was chilling in my room and she was like playing and stuff. And she didn't have a wheelchair and she didn't have an oxygen tank. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, your surgery worked, you're better. And she was like, yeah, I'm really good now. Everything's great. I just wanted to play for a little while. So, and it was weird because, like, I mean, in my first grade little, 5-6-year-old brain, I don't remember thinking anything other than, like, this is fantastic. And, obviously looking back now, I'm like, I shared a room with my sister, my little sister, and she was nowhere to be seen. I have no idea where my sister was, whatever. But we played all afternoon. I remember the games that we played. Like, she really wanted to play Pretty Pretty Princess, so we did that, which, if you remember that game, it was, like, the coolest game ever. So we played that. We played with, like, my little kitchenette set, like, all of the things that she didn't really ever get to do in class with us because she couldn't. We, like, played all afternoon. And then the only other thing that I remember being a little bit weird about that, even at the time, was she kind of just got up and was like, okay, well, it's time for me to go. And I was like, I don't remember the phone ringing. Like, my mom didn't come up and check on us at all, first of all. But also she didn't, like, come and say, hey, it's time to go. Like, your mom's here. And my friend was just like, yeah, no, I know, but I have to go now. Like, it's time for me to go. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, hey, we'll see you at school. Like, you can come and do all these things on the playground with us now. Like, I'm super excited to see you. And she just kind of, like, smiled and waved and walked out my bedroom door. It wasn't like she vanished or I woke up in my bed. Like, she just waved and walked out the door. And then I went about the rest of my day, and it was what it was. So then a few days after that, my mom had gotten a phone call around
Its ex-witch talks about how Hollywood uses witchcraft in their films.
You know, they recreated that movie, The Craft, in 2020.
Really?
They recreated the movie and they invited real witches on the set, and they had the witches before they would do a scene to cast spells and to invite the actresses to come into this circle with them while they were releasing spell words over the viewers and over the scene. And they broadcast it and wrote articles like, isn't this amazing? We're getting real and raw with these real witches. And people are playing it in their home, and it's entertainment. And you know, Charlene, I always say the first part of entertainment is enter. So be careful what's entering your...
People probably thought I was very crazy when I told them that they're actually putting spells out on TV. When I say spells, I mean like the witchy spells, like the ones that cast curses and stuff like that. So one of my favorite shows was The Originals. It still kind of is one of my favorite shows, but that's neither here nor there. And you know, it's a lot of witchery in The Originals, okay? And ever since I was a little girl, I've always loved like Twitches, Harry Potter, The Originals, Vampire Diaries, you know, stuff of that aspect. I love anything with mystical creatures, pretty much. But while I was in high school, I used to take Latin. Now, I only took Latin for one semester because it was a dead language. It was dead to me. I said, I'm not grasping what y'all putting down here. But I did learn, like, you know, the little endings, like the E, it's the it, comos, I was talking about comos, it's something like that. That's why I didn't take it. That's why I switched to Spanish. But I remember that. So I remember like years later, I'm sitting here looking at a show that was on Disney Plus at the time. And I noticed that they had the lady, you know, whoever the character was. I don't remember what show it was. It could have been Wizards of the Waverly Place. It could have been anything. And she was saying a spell on TV. And I heard one of the endings. I said, ooh, that sounds familiar. Because I've always thought that when people cast spells and stuff on TV, like, you know, the writers just write up words, not even like real words, like they just making something sound good, like it sounds like it's Latin, but it's not Latin. Whole time these people actually using spells on TV. And when I say spells, I mean real spells. You ain't gotta believe me, but watch what I'm finna put in here.
When I was the writer's assistant, I wrote the chants. And I would go online and like look up spells. It's like, why not? And then I'd like change a couple words. I'd go and I'd like figure out a spell.
But you see what I'm saying? They literally will sit there, take the stuff that they see on the internet. They don't take it too serious. They don't really respect the other spirits and stuff that's really out there. Just because you don't take it seriously does not mean that it's not serious. And in that same clip, she said that an actual witch from New Orleans called her like, yo, you're playing with fire. And I don't think you understand the type of fire that you're playing with. And she just laughed it off, chuckled it off. And she told her straight up, you're putting curses across people's TVs all across America. So I say all of this to say, if you ever been one of them people that sit there and they like to look at that stuff, because I know I am. But don't be surprised when stuff like to go bump in the night. And you like, what's going on? I haven't been doing anything. It's not about what you've been doing. It's about what you've been watching, what you've been listening to. But listening to, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, honey. All in all, just guard your ear gates, your eye gates, you know, because it leads to your soul. And not only that, you putting all of that in your house. Just keep the Lord with you at all times, and you'll be all right. Oh my God, glue in my hair. But you get what I'm saying.
Papa Legba is not just a character that they made up on American Horror Story. He's a real spirit according to Haitian voodoo. So when Gabourey Sidibe, who plays Queenie in Coven, had to summon him on the show, she was a little nervous because she was actually saying the phrase. She said that when she was filming the scene, the light fixture in the room started shaking and her back went out. They shot at a different angle and the light fixture crashed to the floor. When they continued shooting, she said she felt a finger move up her chin to her lip and then her lips started to swell. When she was sitting in the makeup chair waiting for the medic, she and the makeup artist said they heard scratching from outside. as if someone was trying to get in. Her Catholic friend gave her a prayer to banish the devil, and all the weirdness stopped for a while. In the final episode of Coven, Sidibe, along with the rest of the girls, had to chant the phrase again. The girls were having a little trouble with the pronunciation of the phrase, so Sidibe reluctantly said it again. After she said the lines, she felt a finger run from the top of her forehead to her upper lip, which then swelled up. Kinda creepy if you ask me. So do you believe her story? Let me know. Also follow my
Discernment is a crazy thing. I used to watch this series called The Originals and Vampire Diaries, and I would binge watch. I was obsessed with the vampire, werewolf, witchy stuff. But whenever they'd say the spells, I'd mute my TV because it just made me feel really uncomfortable, didn't want to hear it. But at this point, I didn't know that what they use in Vampire Diaries, Harry Potter, The Originals, are real spells. And I found out because the witches of social media were going off about it. And these witches were calling out the producers or whatever about it because they're saying, what are you doing? Like, you're literally putting curses and spells in the middle of random people's living rooms who know nothing about any of this stuff. They're real spells. And I was like, there goes the discernment. That's what it was. But Harry Potter is really the one that shocked me. The fact that there's real spells in Harry Potter, because it's literally a childhood favourite. Obviously, I've prayed, I've renounced anything I came into agreement with. But now it's made me so vigilant because there's so many, even on Netflix, there's so many children's movies that are based around witchy spells, and I just won't let my son watch because how do I don't know if they're real spells or not. So you just can't watch any of it. Sorry.
Do not watch this movie. It's got real black magic rituals inside. I just played the trailer in my bedroom and I wish the record button was on. I jumped out of bed. I never get scared, and the light was off and I was like, ooh, let's see what this is about. I love a bit of horror. Played it, I freaking panicked. I jumped up, I nearly fucking wet myself. I was like, oh my god. So anyway, they're using hidden messages in reverse audio. I felt honestly like something supernatural came into my room. If you want supernatural entities to come into your house, watch this movie. I can just picture myself the way I jumped up before. I don't fucking work out like that in the gym. It's good if you want a good workout. Do not play this. Raise awareness. Don't bring this into your homes. Serious talk now. If you really, really want to ruin your homes, then play this shit. Don't play these kind of movies in your homes. They're out there to put black magic in your thoughts and give ideas to people. Don't be playing this. Do not be playing this. Raise awareness. Boycott this shit.
I've been saying this for ages. Not only do they put real spells in the movies, but they do real rituals. So a lot of time whenever you fall asleep watching a movie, you are literally getting put a spell on while you are in the spirit realm because you're sleeping. And another thing too, in music, they also do rituals and spells in the music, for one, to target certain audience and also to make the music go viral and all that. So glamour spells and all that stuff. But it's worse with music because when you're listening to it, you're being put in a certain frequency. It can be a low vibrating frequency or high vibrating frequency depending on the music that you listen to. And that is why sometimes you will hate a song the first two times, and then all of a sudden you'll start liking the song and now you cannot get it out of your head.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely...
Okay, this story is insane. This happened to my family when I was in high school. And it sounds like it's not even real, but I promise you it is. It involves demons, exorcism, deliverance, whatever you want to call it. So in high school, we had a housekeeper. For her privacy, we'll call her Joanna. So one day, Joanna comes up to my mom and she's really distraught. And she's like, I don't know what to do. Please, can you help me? And my mom's like, what's going on? And she knew that we were Christian and spiritual. And I guess she thought that maybe my mom would know something that'd be able to help her. So she was like, we've been having a lot of paranormal, ghost, demonic activity in our house. And my mom was like, what do you mean? What's going on? So she tells my mom that everything started going crazy when one of her neighbors or somebody that she knew gifted her youngest daughter a bicycle, like a tiny little tricycle that she could ride inside the apartment. And she had two daughters. So the youngest one got this tricycle and received this gift. They were really happy. And then weird things started happening. Like, she said that in the middle of the night, they would hear like the bell of the tricycle ringing and they would like hear it like going around the house by itself when the kids were not on it. The kids were asleep in their bed. And then she would start to get up like late at night and go look and see what the noises were. And the daughters would too. And they literally said that they would see the tricycle like going around the apartment at night, riding around with nobody riding it. Things started to get weirder. The youngest daughter, who was gifted the tricycle thing, she started seeing like a little boy, like a tiny little toddler boy, like a demon, running around their house at night and playing with the tricycle and playing with her toys. And it started to talk to her and befriend her. And it would tell her to go and hide like knives from the kitchen underneath her bed. It would tell her to harm herself, to harm her sister, and different things like that. So at this point, this is when Joanna comes to my mom, and she does not know what else to do. She's like, this is a spiritual problem. I don't know if I have ghosts in my house, if I have demons in my house. I don't know what is going on. And luckily she went to my mom, because all the women in my family, me, my mom, my grandma, great grandma, we're ministers and we know how to clean houses, cast out demons, all of that stuff. And instead of going to like a psychic or a witch or something like that to go and help her. So my mom and my grandma meet with her, and they just start talking to her and explaining to her that these are demons in your house. They're not ghosts, because when we die, we go to heaven or hell, and our souls are not trapped here on earth in some in-between realm and unfinished business. That's all baloney. So they're like, you have demons in your house, and the good thing is that these can leave when you call on the name of Jesus. So we're going to come to your house. We're going to cleanse your house, pray over your house, cast the demons out. People call it different things, but they were like, that's what we're going to do. And she was like, great, come over. So my mom, my grandma, and their friend, I'm like, this is before I'm in ministry. I'm in high school. Now I'm a minister and I do this stuff all the time, but this was like 10 years ago. So my mom, my grandma, and their friend, they go to their house. They explain the gospel, believe in Jesus, get saved, and be filled with the Holy Spirit. And then like, okay,